What's up, college football fans? Sonoy Valente here once again with the Mean Green Show today, joined by Kevin Fielder, and we're going to jump into this FAU new hire and Tom Herman. They got their new head coach. And before we get into all that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football, G5 football, any or all of the above, consider hitting that like and subscribe button because that is truly all that we talk about. Kevin, thank you so much for jumping on with me. And real quick, where can everybody find it is and what you do for FAU?
Yeah, so I'm the FAU site publisher for Owls 24/7. You can follow me on Twitter at the Kevin Fielder. You can follow Owls 24/7 on Twitter at Owls 24/7, owls247.com. Do some work for Underdog Dynasty as well. Do some American work for them, and just sort of plug in wherever I can with with coverage or really bad jokes. That's usually what it ends up being, but normally for this case, it's Owls 24/7. On Twitter and owls247.com.
Cool. Well, obviously, news broke. I don't know, a couple of hours ago at this point that Herman was going to be the guy at FAU. And how did you take this news yourself? How is the fan base taking this news? And is it a total surprise, or did you kind of have some insight that they may be going in this direction?
So my understanding was this may have happened quickly, and that this may have been a thing of, maybe in the last couple of days that they sort of zeroed in on Tom Herman and that he was the candidate. I have heard a whole bunch of names thrown out there over the last couple of weeks, or I guess last couple of days, not even last couple of weeks, but last couple of days of different guys who could possibly be. And my understanding was this was a wide open search up until probably even yesterday. From what I had heard, it was a few candidates who were sort of in the leading polling position. I'll be honest, I had never even heard Tom Herman's name, even associated with this job. I had published 2 coaching hot boards in the last few days of guys who, where the buzz was, who were sort of some of the candidates to keep an eye on. And Tom Herman never even ended up on that list. And it was all a whole bunch of guys from Florida, because my understanding was it was going to be a guy who either had deep experience coaching in the state of Florida or is a Florida native. Tom Herman is neither of those things. He's a native of Ohio. He coached so much in Texas. So, it sort of came as a surprise there for me. And then, you sort of look into it a little bit more. And Tom Herman, he's won everywhere he's gone. I think fans are excited about the fact that, he won at Texas and he won at Houston and he won the Peach Bowl at Houston and he won the AAC in his first year with Houston. So much to like about just who Tom Herman is as a coach, and, his obviously, I think his resume speaks for himself. A winner, a serial winner wherever he's gone. He's got a 71, I think, % win percentage across his entire coaching career, including bowl games. He's just a flat out winner wherever he goes, and that's sort of the biggest thing I think that FAU fans are excited about.
Do you think there's any extra maybe sauce to it, being that FAU is going to the American and Tom Herman has already won the American?
Yeah, I think that actually plays into it a little bit. I think that's why fans are even a little bit more excited, because they've seen what he does in the American. It was only 2 years in the American, but he won 22 games in 2 seasons, and he beat Florida State in the Peach Bowl. He was ranked in the top 10 with Houston his first season. Obviously, he parlayed that into a job with Texas, but when you look at his American resume, in particular with the AAC, he was a winner there. He recruited his tail off, in Houston and in the surrounding areas. He was able to build a really competitive and talented team with, quarterback success and defensive line success, and pulled in so many guys who were top end recruits and guys who could have gone P5, and they chose to go with Tom Herman to Houston. I think that's sort of the biggest thing is this is a guy who won or has already won in the American. And when you move to the American, you're getting a guy who has experience in this conference, even if it's very brief and it was sort of in the early stages of the American. It isn't, what the American is now with the teams moving, but this is a guy who knows what the group of 5 landscape is like. This is a guy who's, outside of the group of 5, has coached in the NFL, has coached big time P5 football. This is a dude who's been around the block and, has won everywhere he's gone when he's been directly involved in decision making. Obviously the Chicago Bears didn't win a lot last year, but he was nothing more than an analyst. So, it's hard to sort of say that the reason why they didn't win was because Tom Herman was on their staff.
Right. And something that, I didn't really until I kind of looked into him a little deeper, but he actually went to high school in California and went and played some at Cal Lutheran. So some California ties with him, which obviously is California's powerhouse too. Then we obviously get to Texas, where he's coached at Texas, Sam Houston State, Texas State, Rice, Houston, obviously the head coach at Texas. And yeah, so moral of the story is he knows the landscape of Texas. He obviously has relationships here. He knows how to recruit Texas. And for a North Texas fan like myself, that's kind of unfortunate to have another, head coach in the conference that's going to be competing in this super fertile recruiting area. And not to mention Florida itself is also super fertile. So is there any maybe excitement or buzz about, the ties that he has to the Texas recruiting, the landscape, as well as maybe some concerns or I don't know if concern is the right word, concern / excitement or angst maybe with his lack of Florida connections? If you can kind of touch on those two.
Yeah, I think that, starting with the last point of concerns, I think that for me at least, there's a valid concern about the fact that he has never recruited a lot in Florida. That's never been his MO because he's always been based in Texas. And, as a sort of, went back to earlier, I thought that it was going to be a guy with Florida ties because of that. And, the fact that he was able to recruit in Florida and understood Florida high school football. But I will say this, recruiters can recruit. If you're a good recruiter, you can normally recruit anywhere to some degree. And, I don't know how much he'll recruit in Texas, but having those ties will definitely be important. If you want to, I think that the more reality answer for how he'll recruit in Texas is, you go in, you poach a few guys that you like, and then you sort of keep the rest of your recruiting in Florida, and you keep the rest of your recruiting where you save money. You can go out and recruit high schools in your backyard and, win in those areas where it's going to be a little bit more important. But recruiters can recruit anywhere. And I think that's sort of the biggest buzz for some FAU fans is the fact that he's a recruiter. He's recruited everywhere he's gone. He's been able to recruit efficiently everywhere he's gone. Those sort of things are going to help a lot in terms of building this team up even more and, getting them into a position where they can compete in the American or even down the line potentially. I think this is still speculating with the way that things are going to go in the American, but put yourself in a position to try and compete for the Group of 5 playoff spot when when the playoffs expands to 12 teams in the next couple of years.
Last thing before we get you out of here. So obviously, Lane Kiffin comes in and really just gets FAU to the crazy heights super quickly and unconventionally entertaining brand of football, right? And just flashy, this, that, and the other. Then Willie Taggart comes in, follows him, and Willie Taggart has a really good resume. Probably, I mean, a little bit different than Lane Kiffin's, but still a sought after coaching candidate. And there's a professor at UNT who me and a few of my friends we talk about, who took his class. And one of the things that he said as a coach, if you want to get into the business of coaching, don't ever follow a legend. And Willie Taggart kind of did that, even though he wasn't there that long. I mean, what Lane Kiffin did at FAU was pretty, it was kind of unheard of, right? So then obviously Willie Taggart comes in and FAU has these higher expectations now from what they saw from Lane Kiffin. And Taggart, it wasn't bad, but he wasn't any Lane Kiffin, right? So do you think Tom Herman might benefit from that kind of that gap? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they're not expecting to him to come in and win. Again, it's the American now, not the Conference USA, but to win 9 or 10 games in season one. Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I have always been vocal about the fact that expectations were never fair to Willie Taggart. And I believe that so much that played into the fact that he was following Lane Kiffin, who in such a short time won so many games and was able to be so successful. We're talking 2 conference championships, 2 Boca Bowl wins under his belt. He's only credited with one of the Boca Bowls because he left before the last one. But, this was a guy who, when he came at FAU in less, and after one season, turned this program into a winner in Conference USA and left to go to Ole Miss. And I think FAU fans, and it's going to happen with any fan base. When you follow up a dude who, a guy who won so much at your program, the next guy is going to be expected to maintain those expectations. And it was never really fair to Taggart because the team was not to the same standards that it was under Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin went so much, was so involved in the transfer portal, or I guess the transfer market back then. It really wasn't a portal back then, but just involved in transfers and was really heavy on transfers and getting guys involved from there. And then, he didn't really recruit as much as you would have liked to see a guy like that, recruit. So when he left for Ole Miss, the cupboard was bare. It's sort of, I likened it to, like, when it's the end of the week and you're hungry and you open the fridge and there's ketchup and there's a whole bunch of like just stuff that does not work together at all, and you're just sort of like, well, I'll put something together because I'm hungry. But you know I think Tom Herman's entering a situation that's a little bit more comfortable for a head coach. This is after shopping. This is you're hungry after shopping. Willie Taggart, the success was not on the field, and 2 5-7 seasons in a row, missing out on bowl games is disappointing, and it's not where FAU wanted to be. But he built the program up in terms of depth, in terms of players, in terms of recruiting. This is a team that, from when Willie Taggart took over to when Willie Taggart was eventually let go of, when Willie Taggart was eventually let go, there was a different sense of where this team was, and there was more talent, there was more depth, there was more ability to win immediately. And I think Tom Herman's entering a situation where he can win 7-8 games immediately with the right pieces around him, with the right coaching staff, with the right quarterback. That's sort of going to be the biggest question mark of who the next quarterback is for FAU, with Nkosi Perry leaving. But there's a lot to like about where FAU is right now. And I had seen someone on Twitter, I believe he works for The Athletic, or I don't remember who it was, sort of call this job a rebuild. And I just don't agree with that at all. This is not a rebuild. Tom Herman's not entering a rebuild. He's entering a team that, is a retool. I'll agree on the fact that it's a retool, but this is not a rebuild. And FAU can compete immediately if he puts the right pieces together. And I think that, the expectations hopefully start a little bit lower. I don't want, I hope fans don't come in and go, this is a 10-win team. This is an 11-win team. This is a team that's going to compete for the AAC in 1 year. But this is a team that, if everything goes their way, can be competitive immediately, and in a year or two be really set up for success in the American, or whatever the landscape of college football looks like. Because I don't ever want to say that it's going to be what the American is, because I think we just saw last summer and heading into this year that nothing is really guaranteed in college football.
Right. One last question for you. Okay, so obviously Hudson Card is now in the transfer portal. That was, you see the connection there. Obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
Hudson Card, Tom Herman. Do you think now? No, there's some big names sniffing around, like Notre Dame. But do you think there's any shot that Herman could bring Hudson Card over to FAU?
I never say never with relationships in college football, because covering the sport as long as I have and watching the sport for as long as I have, you notice that relationships start to matter a little bit more than maybe we give them credit to. So, is it possible that Tom Herman's relationship with Hudson Card could be the difference maker in terms of bringing him to FAU compared to, a Notre Dame or whatever other schools are sort of sniffing around a guy like him? But I still am under the belief that he's going to go Power 5. And I think that he will test the market and go Power 5, because that's his talent level. He proved that Texas this past year, replacing Quinn Ewers, when Quinn Ewers suffered that collarbone or that shoulder injury. I don't remember what the specifics of the injury was, that he was a really talented quarterback who proved that he could win, at the Power 5 level. And I think he's going to try and test his luck there. So I won't ever count it out. I won't sit here and go, it's not happening, but it feels a little unlikely that it's going to happen. But you get a guy like him, maybe he pulls the right strings and, convinces him that this is a spot where he'll be a guaranteed starter. He'll get film and can win games as well. And that may be the difference maker. So it's going to be interesting to see when the portal opens up on December 5th of how these sort of things go and what quarterbacks enter and where FAU can go from there, because so many things can change in the matter of, a couple of days in the transfer portal. And I think FAU has proven in the past. I look back to Nkosi Perry, and Nkosi Perry had Power 5 offers coming out of Miami when he entered the portal, and he chose FAU partly, I think, due to not wanting to leave the area. He had a daughter and a girlfriend in the area. Didn't really want to leave the area, but he had interest from different Power 5 schools. Relationships matter. That's sort of the biggest thing that I go back to all the time, is that relationships matter, and if you can hit the right relationships, you can sort of turn it around to a fact of, maybe he comes in and, maybe there's enough to convince him to come in.
All righty, Kevin. Well, thank you so much for jumping on, and we'll see how this all plays out. It's very interesting, very crazy time for college football. But yeah, once again, thank you for your time. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Thanks for having me on.